Welcome back to R.M.Aviation yet again for another video. Today we'll be discussing American Airlines Flight 587 was a scheduled passenger flight traveling from John F. Kennedy International Airport, or JFK as it's also known as, in New York to Dominican Republic's Las Americas International Airport, or SDQ, in Santa Dominica on November 12th, 2001. The Airbus A300-600 aircraft tragically crashed into Queens neighborhood of New York City just minutes after takeoff, resulting in the death of 265 people, 260 passengers and crew on board, and 5 people on the ground. So this accident is notable in the role that pilot control inputs and aircraft systems played in the sequence of events leading up to the crash. The investigation, led by the National Transport Safety Board, or NTSB, determined that the combination of human factors and aircraft performance limitations contributed to the disaster. Here are some basic flight details you may need to understand this crash more. The aircraft was an Airbus A300-600 registered N14053, and the route was JFK, New York to Las Americas International Airport, Santa Dominica. The date of the crash was the 12th of November, 2001. Passengers and crew, there was 251 passengers and 9 crew members. The fatalities, there was 265 fatalities in total, all on board and 5 on the ground. Flight duration was less than 3 minutes. The timeline of events. So takeoff and initial climb. Flight 587 took off from John F. Kennedy International Airport at 9:15 a.m. The Airbus A300-600, a wide-body twin-engine jet carrying 251 passengers and 9 crew. The initial phase of the flight was proceeded as expected. The aircraft began to climb out of JFK, and this was the process of leaving New York City airspace when the disaster occurred. The first warning: vertical stabilizers and rudder deflection. Just minutes after takeoff at around 9:16 a.m., the aircraft experienced severe aerodynamic turbulence caused by wake turbulence of a preceding 747, which had taken off ahead of the Airbus. The turbulence caused the rolling motion in the Airbus, leading to the flight's crew to respond with correcting the plane's flight path, leading to the pilot using rudder. The first officer in the cockpit applied aggressive rudder inputs to counteract the rolling motion. The rudder, which was used to control the aircraft's yaw, was deflected to the full left position, approximately 12 degrees. At this point, the aircraft's vertical stabilizers, or tail section, was subject to enormous forces that was not designed to handle under such conditions. The vertical stabilizers failure. The vertical stabilizers on the tail fin and the rudder are critical components in maintaining the aircraft's stability, particularly during yawing motions. However, this excessive rudder deflection created forces beyond the design limits and the aircraft's tail. The rudder's extreme deflection caused the structural failure in the vertical stabilizers. The vertical stabilizers tore off from the aircraft, resulting in a catastrophic loss of control. Without the vertical stabilizers, the aircraft's yaw control was lost and the plane became uncontrollable. The loss of control led to the roll and the violent oscillations, making it impossible for the pilots to regain control of the aircraft. 4. The plane's final moments and crash. The aircraft entered an uncontrolled descent, and within seconds it crashed into the Bell Harbor neighborhood in Queens, New York City, just 2.5 miles from JFK. All 260 people on board, including passengers and crew, were killed. Additionally, 5 people on the ground were also killed when the plane's wreckage landed on them. Investigation findings. The NTSB, or National Transport Safety Board, conducted a thorough investigation into the crash, and final report release in 2004 identified the following key contributing factors. 1 was the excessive rudder inputs. The investigation found the first officer's rudder inputs were too aggressive in response to the wake turbulence. The full deflection of the rudder, approximately 12 degrees, created forces that exceeded the design limits of the aircraft's tail section. Ailerons used to roll the aircraft are generally preferred control surface for correcting the roll in response to turbulence, but the first officer used the rudder as a primary method for correcting the plane's motion. To the inadequate understanding of rudder dynamics, the NTSB found that the first officer may not have fully understood the limitations of the rudder. In such conditions, the Airbus A300 models, unlike other aircraft types, were known to have reduced rudder effectiveness at high speeds, such as those aircraft were flying during the climb. This meant that excessive rudder inputs could increase the excessive forces on the tail, potentially leading to structural failure. 3 was design limitations of the Airbus A300. The Airbus A300 was not designed to withstand extreme rudder inputs at the speeds the aircraft was flying during the climb. The vertical stabilizers and rudders were not capable of handling forces created when the full rudder deflection under these conditions, especially when subjected to wake turbulence and forces. The tail structure and failure occurred when the rudder was deflected too far, causing violent separation on the vertical stabilizers from the aircraft. Pilot response and training issues. Although the first officer followed standard procedures for correcting the rolling motion caused by the turbulence, the rudder input was excessive. While the first officer's reaction was understandable as a typical correction in turbulence-induced rolling, with the rudder, the response was not appropriate for the high speeds at which the aircraft was flying. The NTSB recommended further training for pilots regarding proper responses to wake turbulence and emphasized the need for greater understanding of the rudder's role in such situation, as well as the importance of more precise control inputs during turbulent conditions. Wake turbulence. The plane had been following a Boeing 747, which is the largest aircraft capable of generating a strong wake turbulence. The NTSB noted that the flight crew encountered moderate to severe wake turbulence shortly after takeoff, which led to the initial roll and the need for correction. Aircraft design and safety recommendations. Following the crash, the NTSB issued a safety recommendations regarding rudder control and potential design limits of the rudder system on the aircraft. The crash prompted a closer look into the design of the rudder control system, leading to modifications in aircraft and operational procedures for high-speed flight. Legacy and impact. The improvement of the aircraft control training system. The American Airlines Flight 587 accident highlighted the importance of proper pilot training, particularly in response to the turbulence and maintenance of controls at high speeds. It led to improvements in the training programs and ensuring pilots would better understand the limitations in the control surfaces like the rudders and how to use them appropriately. Revisions to the aircraft design. Following the crash, there were discussions around redesigning the rudder systems on aircraft, which will make them less prone to failure under extreme conditions. While the Airbus A300's rudder system was designed to withstand significant stress, the aggressive deflection in this case exceeded the aircraft's limits. The incident contributed to reviews of the control surface limits and reinforced the importance of the structural safety under the operational stress. 3. Public awareness and wake turbulence. The crash also drew more attention into the dangers of wake turbulence, especially from large aircraft like the 747. While wake turbulence had long been a known issue, it became more a pressing concern after this accident, and guidelines were enhanced to minimize the risks for aircraft following large planes. In conclusion, the crash of American Airlines Flight 587 was caused by a combination of pilot action, aircraft design limitations, and the effect of wake turbulence. While the crew's attempt to correct the plane's roll due to wake turbulence was understandable, the aggressive rudder input created forces that led to the vertical stabilizer failure. The crash resulted in several lost people on board and several people on the ground. In the aftermath, safety improvements were made in pilot training, aircraft design, and understanding of the control surface limitations. This incident remains a reminder that the importance of pilot judgment and understanding of the aircraft systems, particularly in challenging flying conditions. Thank you all again for tuning in. Please stay safe and have a nice day. And leave a comment if you have any questions or if you have a video or an accident you'd like me to look into. As I know, on previous videos, people have said, hey, I remember this accident happening and this always caught my attention. If that's something like what you have at the moment, please tell me and I'll do some research and I'll make you a video. Thank you.